Assalamu alaikum. I am so deeply honored and humbled to be here and to spend the day at Salam, and you should all be so grateful to have such a beautiful community center with such dedicated leadership. But most of all, I have been inspired by the young people who are growing up at the Salam Center, and they have given me so much hope at a time where there is so much darkness. And these young people, and you got to meet some of them here on the stage today, so may Allah bless them, may Allah make them successful, may Allah give them the moral courage to continue to stand up and be unapologetically Muslim. May Allah bless those leaders who have invested not only their financial resources, but their time in building this beautiful center here in Sacramento. I know that when Brother Wasim came up here, he was showing some photos on the screen, and he talked to you all about some big accomplishments that we have. MashaAllah, we sent the first 2 Muslim American women to Congress, and you get to say 30 years from now, 40 years from now, you get to say that you were alive when the first 2 Muslim women went to Congress. In fact, we sent 118 women to Congress this year, because that is the power of women. And when women lead, trust me when I tell you, our country will be in a much better place. So let's try to get as many women elected into office and put as many women in power as possible, because women are nurturing, women are powerful, and women know how to get the job done. Everybody else was really inspirational and, trying to tell you about all the good stuff, but my job in the Muslim community is not to be the inspirational one. I'm the one that's supposed to remind you that our country is burning down around us, and you all better get up, pick up a fire hydrant, and start putting out the fires. That's my job in the Muslim community. Because sometimes I wonder if you and I are living in the same country. If me and all the Muslims in America are living and experiencing the same things. Because I think if we were all experiencing and observing the same things, every single Muslim in America would be engaged, we would be organizing, we would be building power, we would all find a role for us to play in the things that are happening around us. So just in case you are not paying attention, Sister Linda pays attention on your behalf. So let me tell you all the really bad things that are happening. This administration has only been in office for less than 2 years. I'm 38, I feel like I'm 88 years old. I feel like I've done more work in the past 2 years than the entire 38 years of my life. When the administration was just in office for 1 week, they already announced the Muslim ban. They banned Muslims. And we got to what? Muslim ban 1, Muslim ban 2. You remember, we went to 3 and now we got to 4. 4 was pretty much number 1. Except missing one country. They took off Iraq, thank God. But the point is, Muslim ban was the first announcement from this administration. And as you know, the Muslim ban case went all the way to the Supreme Court. And guess what happened to the Muslims in the Supreme Court? We lost in the Supreme Court. And now the Muslim ban is basically a law. And what the Muslim ban case said was that the President of the United States of America is in fact able to ban whoever he wants, whenever he wants, from whatever country he feels like it. So this is what I ask my Muslim sisters and brothers. There are 6 countries on the list: Syria, Libya, Somalia, Yemen, Iran. We can go on and name all the countries. But this is what's bothering me about the Muslim community. I don't know, sisters and brothers, how many countries you want on the list. Who else got to be on the list? Egypt got to be on the list. Algeria, Morocco got to be on the list. Pakistan, India. When is it going to get to the point where the Muslim community says, enough is enough? This is not right. When will we rise up as a community and say that I don't love my children more than Yemenis love theirs, or more than Somalis love their children, or more than Sudanese love theirs, or more than Libyans love theirs? That people should have and be reunited with their families. Just like you get to go home with your children tonight, everybody deserves the opportunity to be with their families. Sisters and brothers, what says that this president next year won't wake up one morning and say, you know what, I realize I don't like the Egyptian people, so I'm going to put Egypt on the list. This Supreme Court decision gave him that opportunity, and in fact, not just this president, but any president to come. A lot of people said, Sister Linda, what were you doing in Washington, D.C. in September when you were standing up and fighting against the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court? You know why? Because you lost in the Supreme Court when it wasn't even majority conservative, and you lost the Muslim ban case. Now you have a majority conservative Supreme Court. Guess what? We may as well never get to the Supreme Court because we're never going to win in the Supreme Court. This is why we as a community, sisters and brothers, got to start paying attention. We are not visitors to this country. This is our country, and everything that happens here impacts us and impacts generations of Muslims to come. But that's not the only thing that this administration has done in the last 2 years. They dropped the mother of all bombs on Afghanistan. They killed 200 Iraqi civilians in the last 2 years in the deadliest airstrike since the war in Iraq started. They have caged children at the border. They have stripped babies from their mothers and put them in cages on your watch, the American people's watch. You watched them last week throw tear gas at people at the borders who are trying to come to this country fleeing political persecution, drug cartels, violence oftentimes incited by our involvement as the U.S. government on our taxpayer dollars. And here we are as a nation that has welcomed immigrants for the last 300 years, telling people that they don't deserve, nor are they valuable or worthy enough to bring their families to this country so they can live a dignified life just like some of us get to live here. They took away 200,000 temporary protected status from people from El Salvador. 60,000 Haitians lost temporary protected status, some who have been in this country for 30 years, and this government told them you are no longer welcomed here. By 2019, they will all be undocumented, and this government will be starting to work on their deportations. Sisters and brothers, 23 million Americans lost access to health care. We beat them last summer when we fought against the repeal of the Affordable Care Act, but then they thought we were fools, and they tried to bring back the repeal of health care in the tax bill that nobody was paying attention to. The only reason they wanted the tax bill was because they wanted to fold the repeal of the Affordable Care Act under the tax bill. And then the rich people, some rich Muslims who said, great job, tax bill, I don't have to pay a lot of taxes, I'm going to put some more money back in my pocket, I support this bill. While you supported that bill, guess what happened? 23 million Americans got kicked off of health insurance. Some of whom are children, some are people who are terminally ill, and because of pre-existing conditions, no longer have access to health care in these United States of America. This administration took away 800,000 young undocumented kids' legal status, DACA, many of which Muslim young people in our community who are undocumented also benefited from. What does that mean? That means that these 800,000 undocumented young people were actually safer before they applied for DACA. You know why? Because when they applied for DACA, they went and gave all their information to the U.S. government, which means that now 12 million people, which are their family members, by extension are at fear of deportation if this government and this Congress doesn't figure out how to protect those 800,000 young people. This administration also went against the international community and thought it was a good idea to move the American embassy to Jerusalem. And this president stood up and declared and thought it was just about words, that he has so much power that he can stand up and declare that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. And since he thinks it's as easy as words, I will declare to all of you here today in Sacramento that Jerusalem is and always will be the capital of Palestine. Sisters and brothers, we sold the largest arms deal to Saudi Arabia. And we continue as a country to support Saudi Arabia in their war on Yemen. 85,000 Yemeni children have died, sisters and brothers, from famine, from cholera, from disease, and not have access to basic things that we take for granted here. The Yemeni people, sisters and brothers, are in one of the most dire situations. We can say that also about the people of Syria. But it is us, the U.S. government, and our taxpayer dollars and our relationships of this administration that we, too, as a Muslim community, are complicit in what's happening to our Yemeni sisters and brothers in Yemen. Sisters and brothers, I could sit here, corruption, Russian collusion. I could sit here literally for the next 3 weeks listing all the things that this administration has done, has said against the people, against immigrants, against Muslims. I don't even have time to do that all right now. The only reason I'm telling you all this is to remind you that we are living in a dark time. This administration is not like any other administration. We are talking about a time in the United States of America when we are living under fascism. These are fascists. And you know what also confirmed it for me? I don't know if you've seen the photos, the people at the border that are waiting to get here, because let me explain to you how the law works and how you know you're under fascism. The definition of asylum says that in order for you to apply for political or humanitarian asylum, and you know this if you are an asylee, you must be inside the United States of America to apply for asylum. That's what the Immigration Naturalization Services says. So of course the people on the border are trying to come in. Guess what this U.S. government has done? They have put numbers on the arms of people as they're standing in line. You know where we've seen that before, sisters and brothers? Do you know where we've seen that before? When you make people, human beings, full human beings, creations of Allah, and you start putting numbers on their arms, it doesn't end well, sisters and brothers. And that's why we as a community must rise up. A lot of times I go to different Muslim communities around the country, and alhamdulillah, this is definitely not my experience here at Salam, but I will explain to you my frustration with the Muslim community. I go to a lot of masajid or community centers, and this is what they say. They say, Sister Linda, we know you're very political. But in my masjid, we try not to be too political. We don't like politics here. And so this is what I want you to tell anybody that says to you, I'm not political, I don't know about politics, I don't know if I want to engage in politics. My masjid that I go to, they're not really political. Here's my answer to those people. If you woke up this morning and you are breathing and you are Muslim, you're political. There's no question about it, sisters and brothers. You live in a country that has politicized you. They have politicized your faith. They have targeted you based on who and how you worship in these United States of America. So you have no choice but to be political. You have no choice but to be engaged and ensure that we as a community stand up and defend our right to be Muslim in these United States of America. I tell people all the time I went to public school. My parents couldn't afford to send 7 children to Islamic school. But on the weekends, we went Saturdays and Sundays to Islamic school. And as I grew older, I realized that I got cheated out of my Islamic education. And I'm not sure, there might be kids here at Salam who may be also getting cheated out of their Islamic education. Let me explain to you what I mean by that. You know, oftentimes on the weekend they taught us, you know, recitation of Quran, memorization, all great, all necessary, and we all have to do that. And they taught us, you know, the inspiring stories, and they say, you know, the seerah of our beloved Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him. All important. But you know what I feel like I got cheated out of? Nobody ever told me that my beloved Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, was an activist. He was a human rights activist. He was a man that cared about the poor and the orphans. He always chose to be with the poor. He never chose to be with the congressmen or the people who were in power. He always chose to be with the most disenfranchised of the societies in which that he lived. He also was a man that cared about the animals, like an animal rights activist and an environmental justice activist. He taught us that the earth and the water and the trees and the plants, those were blessings from Allah, and that we needed to take care of those too. So when you hear people in the Muslim community or people in the activism world say that I am an environmental justice activist, that's not something outside of you. That's not something those people do over there. You as a Muslim are obliged to take care of the blessings that Allah gave you, and that includes the earth that is around us. I remember one time being in San Diego at a rally, and I remember Imam Taha, many of you know him from the Islamic Center of San Diego. He stood up on the stage, and it was a rally about raising fair wages and standing with hotel workers. And he said something that was so profound. It was the first time I ever heard it. And he said that our beloved Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, and he was saying this to a majority non-Muslim audience. He said that our beloved Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, said, pay the worker before the sweat on his forehead dries. And I felt so proud, I felt so profound that our beloved Prophet basically was saying that workers should be paid fair wages and they should be paid for their labor. We don't need a workers' rights movement or an environmental justice movement. We don't even need a Black Lives Matter movement, because in our deen has taught us that Black Lives Matter mattered way before there was ever a hashtag or a movement or people protesting outside of these streets. And our deen has always been an anti-racist and feminist and empowering religion. I don't need people in the West or people in Europe or people in the United States of America to teach me what feminism is, because my beloved Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, told me and shared with me and taught me how worthy I am as a woman and how important education of women is and how important for us to hold leadership positions in our community. So sisters and brothers, when you build a community center, it's important to build infrastructure, but it's also important to build human capital and to use our deen as a way to guide our young people to be feminists and to be organizers and to be activists, because our deen holds all of those examples. We don't need to bring people from the outside to teach us to organize and to build power and to empower our young people, because all of those reside and those guidelines reside in the very deen that we follow. You know, a lot of imams, sometimes I hear them when I go to these interfaith events, and they love to use this line, and it really bothers me, because they never do the second part of it. They go up on the stage and they say, Islam is a religion of peace. I agree with that. I believe that all faiths that have been brought to this earth have been brought here to bring peace amongst the people. But what is more important to me about Islam is not that it's a religion of peace, but it's a religion of justice, sisters and brothers. There is no peace without justice, and that is our beloved deen. Our deen has taught us to stand up against injustice, even if it's against your own parents. So that when we as a Muslim community turn our backs to refugees who are coming to our community, or single mothers in our community, or divorced women in our community, or when we turn our backs to or turn a blind eye to young black men and women being killed at the hands of those who are supposed to protect and serve them, or when we turn our backs on people whose parents are being deported, or people who are fighting for health care and fighting for economic justice, that we, sisters and brothers, are not being whole Muslims like Allah intended us to be. Sisters and brothers, being a Muslim is not just about praying 5 times a day. Being a Muslim is not just about fasting 30 days in 1 month during the year. It's not about you going to Hajj just one time in your entire lifetime if you are able to. That is part of our deen. Those are the obligatory parts of our deen. But for me, in order for you to be a full Muslim, you cannot allow people and injustice to flourish around you while you turn a blind eye to injustice. I want to give you an example of something that happened to me and how I think about sometimes the Muslim community and where we are, not financially as a Muslim community, not in numbers as a Muslim community, but where we are in our courage as a Muslim community. I went to ISNA 2 years ago in Chicago. I was the keynote speaker at the luncheon, just like I'm the keynote speaker here. The whole room was full of Muslims just like you. So it was the first year that Donald Trump became president, so you know me, I'm trying to motivate the Muslim community. Everyone's pretty devastated, everyone's in despair. So you know me, I go in and say there's nothing to worry about, we're going to rise up and organize, we're going to build power, and we're going to protect our people and all that good stuff. And then I shared a hadith that I heard like 1,000 times in my whole life, and I'm pretty sure you've heard it 1,000 times. I'm pretty sure Imam Kashif has even said this hadith. And I said to the people in the room, I said that there was a man who asked our beloved Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, what is the best form of jihad or struggle? And our beloved Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, responded and said that the best form of jihad or struggle is a word of truth to a tyrannical ruler. That's it, sisters and brothers, nothing happened. Everything was great, ISNA was over, everybody clapped, we had a great time, we shopped at the bazaar, and then I went home. And then when I got home to New York, I woke up very early in the morning, I looked at my phone, Sister Linda, are you okay? Sister Linda, where are you? Where are your children, Sister Linda? Can I come over? And I was like, what is wrong with these people? What happened? I'm fine, I'm home, everything's great. So you know me, when I saw all the concern, I did the most natural thing that millennials do these days. I'm an old millennial, but I'm still a millennial. I was born in 1980, to be very clear. I went to Twitter. I said, if there's something that happened, it must be on Twitter. So I went to Twitter, and here I was, Sister Linda was trending on the top of Twitter. There was 2 things trending. Linda Sarsour was trending #1, and #3 was jihad. And then I knew exactly what happened. So basically, as you probably know, and I will be very clear, I already knew I was being recorded, just to be clear here. So this is not a secret speech with the Muslims. This was on Facebook Live, and everybody could have watched it. So I wasn't having a one-on-one with the community that only a message to the Muslims. Anybody could have heard my speech. The son of the President of the United States of America, got into it with some other right-wing media outlets, and you already know how they do. They take out the speech, they take out only 20 seconds of what I said, and that was all over. They said I was calling for a holy war on the President of the United States of America, which I was not. They said I should be arrested for treason. It was really dramatic. It was crazy. So then two dear brothers in our community, two national Muslim leaders who I love very much and are mentors of mine, called me up. Salam alaikum, Sister Linda. Are you okay? Do you need anything? You know, you got to be more careful. You know, we need to protect you. You know, sometimes, Sister Linda, there are certain words we as Muslims shouldn't use because other people don't understand. You know, you already know where I'm going with this. And I'm not going to lie to you, sisters and brothers. I love these brothers dearly. They are good brothers. They have built infrastructure in the Muslim community. They have done a lot for us on a national level. But I'm not going to lie to you. I was so disappointed in them. My heart was broken. And I said, what happened to these brothers that they have absolutely no more moral courage, that they're telling me to go apologize for the words of my beloved Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him. So they gave me a choice to make. They actually didn't give me a choice. They gave me basically one suggestion. I was the one that had to make another choice. So they said to me, Sister Linda, what if you wrote a statement and apologized for saying something that maybe other people didn't understand or that, you know, is a bit controversial? And maybe you could say that you could have used better words. You already know what the suggestion was. That was one. And then the other choice I had was to do what? Well, it could be nothing could have been a choice, but you know me, can't. Sister Linda doesn't do nothing. I could have either written that statement like the brothers suggested, or I could have doubled down on it. So Sister Linda was like, I'm ready to take the risk, and I'm going to take the whole Muslim community with me. So I doubled down. I said, absolutely not, I'm writing no statement. And I'm not going to apologize for what I said because I said absolutely nothing wrong. And I, as a Muslim, have every right to preach my faith in the way that I want to preach it. And I will not allow anybody to define what is controversial and what is not in my deen, and especially if you're not another Muslim. So what did I do? The Washington Post called me and I asked the opinion editor at the Washington Post, I said, I'd love to speak for myself. Stop having conversations about me without me. So he said, go ahead, you got 850 words in the Washington Post. And I wrote a piece that you can all read in the Washington Post, and I said jihad in every paragraph. After I started explaining that, in fact, the majority of times in which jihad is used in Islam, it's actually very beautiful. It's about our own personal struggle, our internal struggle to be better people, to strive to be better people. You could be a college student trying to write a final, and it is your jihad for you to get that A+. It could be as minor as that. Of course, there may be elements to the more extreme, but that is not the majority, and nobody gets to define the way in which universally that word is used in our faith or amongst our community. Plus, that word is not something you can look up on Google because it's not actually an English word. It's actually an Arabic word. So you would think that people who are Arab and speak the Arabic language probably are the ones that get to define that word. After I wrote that Washington Post editorial, believe it or not, sisters and brothers, it was remarkable. Imam Anwar Suleiman wrote something in the Huffington Post, and another sister Najiba wrote something. All of a sudden, the whole internet was talking about jihad from the perspective of Muslim Americans who understand that jihad is about struggle. And so my point, sisters and brothers, is that it is an example of when sometimes we have to make a decision. That we cannot allow others to define our deen for us. We, sisters and brothers, don't tell Christians how to practice their faith. We don't tell Hindus or Buddhists or Sikhs or our Jewish family how to practice their faith. So why do the Muslims allow other people to tell us how we practice our faith? Religious freedom in this country, sisters and brothers, believe it or not, applies to you too. You know, I was spending some some time with young people today at SALAM, and I was very inspired. And they were asking me a lot of really important questions. You know, questions about getting engaged in activism. In fact, some of them had questions, which is why we didn't want any adults in the room. They were talking to me about their parents. And some of you are here, so I might as well talk to you. Sisters and brothers, let me explain a few things to you. And the reason why I have authority on the subject is because I am a parent too. I have a 19-year-old son, a 17-year-old daughter, and a 14-year-old daughter. So I'm giving you advice as someone who actually has the same experiences as you. Here's what I do, sisters and brothers. I do not tell my kids, go to school, study, and don't make no problems. And when parents tell their kids don't make trouble, this is what they mean. Don't get engaged in the MSA. Don't be part of the Students for Justice in Palestine. Don't get into all this activism business. I need you to be a doctor, and that's why I send you to university, and this is why I send you to high school. Sisters and brothers, absolutely not unacceptable. And I'm going to tell you why it's unacceptable. Because when you tell your kids that, what you don't understand is the message that you're sending to them. You may not be realizing what you're saying, but what you're telling your child is, don't be too Muslim, right? Be less than what you are. You are actually telling your kids to be small, and you're restricting them in this moment. If anything, you should be saying the opposite. That you tell your children when they leave that house every morning, that they be unapologetically Muslim. In fact, I want to be, like my mother thinks I passed the threshold. There's like a certain level of being Muslim, like I went on top of that. Like my mom's like, you're too much. Bring it down. Sisters and brothers, it's so important the way in which you engage your children in this moment. One of the things that I realized is, as I was telling you earlier that I got cheated out of an Islamic education, I really did get cheated out of an Islamic education. Because it's important for us to understand our deen and to understand the basics of our deen and to learn the stories of our beloved Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, memorize Quran, learn how to pray, all that good stuff. Important. And I encourage your children. I literally was in tears hearing this young man that was reciting Quran with an angelic voice. It was beautiful. And this is what the product that is coming out of the SALAM Center. But you know what I realized is, as I memorized Quran, as I won competitions as a young person in my Islamic school, as I grew older, I realized there was something that was missing. And what's missing for our Muslim American children is that nobody is teaching them their legacy and their connection as Muslims in America in these United States of America. When somebody tells me, go back to your country, go back to Saudi Arabia, I hate when they say go back to Saudi Arabia, it really bothers me. Because I'm like, at least say go back to Palestine. Like, I'm not from Saudi Arabia. So when I teach my children that if somebody tells you to go back to your country, this is what you say. You say, as a Muslim American, I've been here before you ever knew that there was a United States of America. And our children, sisters and brothers, are lacking in their education of their legacy in this country, and this is why it's important. Because if our young Muslims understood that even if they are not African American, even if we are children or great-grandchildren of immigrants, that as Muslim Americans and by virtue of our faith, that our legacy goes back to Muslim expeditionists who came here. We were Muslim explorers that came to America in the 1500s. And then when the first English colony was built, it was built, sisters and brothers, by galley slaves. These were people who were enslaved from North Africa and from Turkey. They were Turks and Moors who built the first English colony called Roanoke Colony, what you know now as the coast of North Carolina. And then a century or two later, in the African slave trade, and let me be very clear about terminology. When they went to Africa, they did not go and get slaves. There were no slaves in Africa. They went and got people just like you and me, people with families, with livelihoods, people with dreams and aspirations, sisters and brothers. And they enslaved Africans. And when they brought them here to America, we realized 25 to 30% of enslaved Africans were Muslims. And white slave masters recalled that on their plantations where enslaved people were working, they noticed people who were doing some sort of rituals 5 times a day. At the time, they didn't call them Muslims. They eventually realized they were what they called Mohammedans, which was the terminology they used for Muslims many centuries ago. Of course, these people didn't have watches. They didn't have the little iPhone alarm that goes off when it's salah time. They used, sisters and brothers, the sun to dictate the times of day that they would pray. And then they would fast during the months, right, based on the seasons. It probably wasn't accurate, but they were so connected to their faith that they figured out how to be Muslim. But let me be very clear about the conditions of enslaved African Muslims. These are people who experience torture, sisters and brothers, like you would never experience in your life. You would never dream to experience the torture of enslaved people. They watched their wives and daughters raped. They were separated from their families. Many of them actually died and saw their family members die on the bottoms of slave ships as they came to the, quote, new world in this newfound United States of America. And I always think to myself, sisters and brothers, if our young people would understand that their legacy traces back to people who endured things that they will never experience, and still, sisters and brothers, even living under the watch of a slave master, they still believed there was a God. And when those people became semi-free, because let's be clear, sisters and brothers, black people are not fully free in America, even today in 2018. But when they became semi-free people, they carried on our legacy as Muslims. So when your Indian grandfather showed up here to go to medical school, or your great-grandfather came here after a civil war, or some other reasons, we came for many reasons to this country. Your Pakistani grandfather, my Palestinian great-grandfather came after the 1967 war. They didn't just come off an airplane and say, "Salam alaikum, everybody, I'm a Muslim." This is not how it works in this country. You get to sit here in Salam Center because somebody centuries ago sacrificed for you as a Muslim to sit in this room. You were able to build a masjid because somebody lost their lives and shed blood on the streets of this country so that you could be a Muslim. So I say to you, my dear sisters and brothers at Salam, that I am proud of the infrastructure that you have built. I am proud of the youth that you have invested in. And I'm asking you to take it a little bit in a step further. And I want you to educate our young people how proud they should be every single day that we are a community that not only comes from a legacy of resilient, prideful, enslaved Africans who paved the way for our immigrant great-grandparents to come and be Muslims in America. We come from legacies of proud and resilient and powerful and educated Muslims since the days of the founding of our beloved Deen Islam. So our young people need you every single day to remind them that they have everything to be proud of. Sisters and brothers, I do not apologize to anybody for who I am or for what I stand for. And the reason why I have moral courage is because Allah instilled me a moral courage and reminds me that the only fear that we as Muslims have is of Allah. So why would I be afraid of Islamophobes? Why would I be afraid of people saying lies about me on the internet? Because guess who was the first person in our deen to have to experience lies and defamation and vilification? That was our beloved Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, sisters and brothers. You don't know Islamophobia like our beloved Prophet Muhammad knew Islamophobia. This is nothing in comparison to a man who had to figure out how to inspire societies around the world to accept our beautiful deen. He was called a fraud. They called him a magician. They threw garbage at him. They spit at him. Sisters and brothers, and somehow he continued on his path and he inspired till this day 1.8 billion people in the world still follow the life of our beloved Prophet Muhammad and still say, Ashhadu anna la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. So anytime you feel like you are in a dark moment, or we are in a community, or as a community are in a dark moment, realize how grateful and lucky that you are that Allah chose for you to be a Muslim and to have courage in a time when we as a community need that courage. And that courage is not something from the outside, sisters and brothers. That courage comes from our beautiful faith that tells us that we are all the creations of Allah, that we are intended to be loved and embraced and to be treated with the dignity and respect that we deserve. And I'll end by saying to all of you, sisters and brothers, that I'm proud to be here with you in Sacramento. and that you can count on me, your Palestinian Muslim sister from Brooklyn, New York, to be out here on these streets. And I will defend you with everything that I have. You know why? Because you are worthy, sisters and brothers. Our children are worthy, and our deen is worthy of protecting and defending in these United States of America. And I don't only do that for the Muslims that live today, I do that for the Muslims 100 years from now. And I learned something very important from our Native American sisters and brothers, the indigenous people of this land. You know what they said to me and what they taught me when I went to Standing Rock? They said that we don't do anything without thinking about 7 generations of indigenous people to come. So when you organize, when you build a center, when you educate a young person, I want you to think about how that's going to translate 7 generations from now. And what I hope happens in our community, that 7 generations from now, we have a Muslim community that is more powerful and more unapologetically Muslim than we are today in 2018. And I know that will be the case if communities across the country engage and invest in the way that you have done here at this beautiful Salam Center. May Allah bless you all. May Allah protect you and your children. May Allah continue to guide you. May He instill the moral courage in all of you to continue to protect our families, our institutions, our imams and our leaders, and our beloved deen, and our beloved Prophet Muhammad. May peace and blessings be upon him. Assalamu alaikum.